YouTube? Thanks for checking out The Film Geek. Today I'm counting down my top 5 underrated horror comedies. This isn't based off of Metacritic or anything like that. This is clearly just my opinion. So let's get things started, okay? With number 5, and that is John Dies at the End. John Dies at the End is directed by Don Casarelli and it is starring Chase Williamson and Rob Mays. John Dies at the End tells the story of two friends who fight the supernatural and interdimensional beings to try to save the world. Now this movie is from the director of Phantasm, and this movie feels like it could possibly take place in the same universe as Phantasm. And the reason I say that is because this movie has a lot of interdimensional travel and interdimensional talk. In fact, it's not really the supernatural. The creatures that come over into our world are just from other dimensions. It's not like ghosts and goblins and demons and stuff. It's just interdimensional travelers. You can kind of see with all the interdimensional type play and everything how this could be connected to Phantasm in some kind of way. This movie is also super weird. And I mean that in a good way. I mean that in a design way. In fact, the practical effects in this movie are amazing. There's like this whole scene with this giant meat demon. So this demon made out of different pieces of meat that comes flying out of a freezer and forms in front of the two heroes of the story. And yeah, it's a whole thing. I mean, seriously, this movie is funny, but it's not super funny. It does have some laugh out loud moments, but the movie does take on a much more serious, weird tone as it progresses, so it starts to lose a lot of its humor. So I mean, I feel this movie is a bit more horror than comedy, or maybe you would consider it a dark comedy. I don't know. But anyways, this film is great. You should really check it out. So that's number 5, John Dies at the End. Number 4 comes from 1988, and that is Dead Heat. Dead Heat is directed by Mark Goldblatt, and it is starring Treat Williams and Joe Piscopo. Look, the only thing you really need to know about the movie Dead Heat is zombie cop versus zombie criminal. Yes, zombie cop versus zombie criminal. Now, right out the gate, I just want to get this out. This movie does not take itself seriously. This film is a joke. It knows what it is. It is a horror comedy. It is a B-rate homage. This film is a joke. It's a goof. This movie is nothing but B-movie fun from beginning to end. I mean, come on, zombie cop versus zombie criminal. Actually, several zombie criminals. We only have 2 zombie cops, but we have several zombie criminals throughout this whole thing. But anyways, this movie is great. It is so much fun and it's funny. There's a lot of good wit in this. It's definitely a movie of its time. It is 1980s. Let me get that out right now, okay? This is a very 1988 horror comedy. But the good thing about this movie is it really did age well. The makeup effects in this film are really good. They're really on point. And it really, like I said, it's like a time capsule. So the film just feels cool. It's always good. It's always a lot of fun to just put this film on and just enjoy your afternoon. Oh, and I forgot to add, there is an ultra fun Vincent Price cameo in this movie. So stick around for that at least too. Number 3 is 1987's Blood Diner. Blood Diner is directed by Jackie Kong and is starring Rick Burks and Carl Crew. Blood Diner is the story of 2 brothers who are trying to raise an Egyptian goddess and throw this huge cannibalistic feast. Now, this movie doesn't say that it's the direct sequel to Blood Feast. It does not say that it is a remake of 1963's Blood Feast, but it is a remake or sequel of Blood Feast. So yes, this movie is goofy as hell. It's a lot of fun. I found it late one night when I was a kid back watching USA Up All Night, and the movie stuck with me. And well, just watch my video that I did back in October. I'll put a link in the below. That brings us to number 2, and that is 2012's Grabbers. So Grabbers is a story of a small Irish town that is attacked by these giant tentacled aliens. Okay, well, one of them's giant, the rest of them are smaller, but it's a whole thing. Anyways, it's a monster movie, and I love monster movies, and it is super fun. And the reason why this movie is absolutely hilarious is because the monsters are allergic to alcohol. So in order for all of the people in this town to stay alive, they all have to be ripped drunk, like totally pissed drunk in this movie in order to survive. So there's the humor, is just a bunch of drunk Irish folk in a fishing village trying to survive this alien attack. And you're gonna love it. I mean, this movie is so funny from the beginning to the end. There's not just gags about being drunk, obviously. There's a lot of wit in this movie. Another thing about this film that is absolutely fantastic is the creature design. The creature design in this film is awesome. They're like these octopus monsters with these big sharp teeth and everything. And what's great is that yes, the movie is low budget. Yes, this isn't like, MCU level kind of graphics and whatnot, but they look awesome for what they had to work with. The CGI in this film is really spectacular for what they had. It's awesome. It really feels like the creature's there. One of my issues with CGI is that it feels bouncy. It feels bubbly. It doesn't feel solid to me. Like, it doesn't look real enough. I know this sounds strange because everybody's like, oh, it's so real, it's CGI. But for me, it just looks like cartoony. So this movie, in my opinion, really makes these creatures look real. That brings us to number 1. What is the all-time best horror comedy that is completely and absolutely criminally underrated and doesn't get talked about enough? Well, maybe it does, but that's just your opinion, man. And that is 1996, The Frighters. The Frighters is directed by Peter Jackson and is starring Michael J. Fox, and it tells the story of a psychic detective who is hunting down a serial killer ghost that's going around slaughtering people. Now, I absolutely adore this film. I love this movie, and as some of you may know, back in the background over here, I have this, The Frighteners Anniversary Edition, and it's signed by Jake Busey and Dee Wallace. Yes, I have the signature of both of the villains of this movie on this Blu-ray because I love this movie. I have been an enormous fan of Peter Jackson's work since I saw the movie Dead Alive. Brain damage. But anywho, this movie right here, Dead Alive, this was the movie that my buddies and I would quote nonstop. We loved this movie. My first apartment, I had this movie on VHS, and it was the movie that we watched so much that we wore the goddamn thing out. So anyways, enough about Peter Jackson's works and what I love about Peter Jackson. Let's talk about just Frighteners. So this movie is super fun. It came out in 1996, and the special effects in this movie really, really, really hold up. And I don't know necessarily how true this story is, but I have heard that this movie and the special effects in this movie actually led to the making of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The story goes like this. In order to do the special effects, in order to do the CGI in this movie, Peter Jackson bought, like straight up bought, these computers, super high-end CGI, graphic computers of their time. Well, Frighteners was not a huge success, or it wouldn't be on this list. So at the end of this whole thing, Peter Jackson was left with all these freaking computers, which gave him the idea, hey, I got all this cool stuff. Maybe I should make Lord of the Rings. Okay, now again, don't know how true that story is, but it's a good story, right? So yes, this film is super fun. It's a great blend of both horror and comedy. It's silly, it's goofy, it's B-movie fun. And Michael J. Fox's performance in the film is great. Everybody is awesome. Jake Busey is great as the villain, same as Dee Wallace. Everyone, oh god, the list goes on with this movie. And of course I'm not gonna forget Jeffrey Combs' performance in this film. I mean, this movie is just so much fun. I don't know what happened here. I don't know why this movie wasn't a big success. This was like one of those movies I did see opening night, and the theater I went to was like completely packed. And I was really shocked to find out that this movie bombed. I really couldn't believe it. But yeah, I guess I just went to the one theater that everybody in the known area went and saw. Okay guys, that brings us to the end of another Film Geek video. If you liked what you saw here today, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, and give me a thumbs up so I know you like what you're seeing. And of course folks, if there's one other thing you can do, and that is keep watching movies. You know I'm gonna.